Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori. I have been in a total reading slump lately. Anybody else? I thought I would come back on here and I would dig out the books on my TBR shelf that are fantasy series that I am most excited to read and start talking about them, because I don't know about you guys, but when I start talking about a book that I'm really excited to read, it definitely makes me get more excited about reading in general. Here are the top 5 fantasy series on my TBR shelf that I am most excited to read. The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Stormlight archive, and number 4 is coming out this year, and everybody is literally losing their crap about it, which is awesome. But first, I need to start reading the actual series because I haven't done that yet. I just finished reading Starsight, and I am just blown away by Brandon Sanderson as a writer. I know that everybody gushes over him and that it can get a little old sometimes when you literally hear his name everywhere.
Sanderson, Brandon Sanderson, Mistborn, Stormlight, Skyward, The Reckoners. Have you read Sanderson? If you want to get into fantasy, you should start with Sanderson.
I personally don't have a problem with that because I'm kind of on the Sanderson train. I think he's an absolutely brilliant writer and definitely one of the most prolific fantasy authors that is existing in this time. So let's give credit where credit is due. He's a literal machine, and the quality of the stuff that he comes out with on a consistent basis is kind of inhuman. I'm used to reading big books, okay? And this is intimidating for me, and this isn't even the largest of the first 3 books. So I realize that I am undertaking a journey here. The next group of books I actually snagged for a ridiculously low price on eBay. This is a giant stack of the Dresden Files books by Jim Butcher, who I have not read anything by him yet, and I have heard all of the things about Jim Butcher, and especially about Harry Dresden as a main character. I won't lie, one of the things that put this farther back on my reading list for a while was just the fact that a lot of people were telling me,
okay, you have to read the first 2 or 3 books before it really starts to get good.
That leaves me questioning whether or not I should even actually read it. You know what I'm saying? Book number 1, Stormfront by Jim Butcher. These are tiny books comparatively. In the grand scheme of things, this really doesn't look that scary when you really think about it. I've heard that these are just a great time. They follow a wizard named Harry Dresden who's in our world, and apparently it's a rip-roaring good time. There's so many different genres that I feel like this touches on. You know, it's got your thriller aspect, it's the murder mysteries, it's the paranormal kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things in here that I think make it accessible to a lot of different people. Another one I have on my shelf that I'm really stinking excited to read is The Greatcoats by Sebastian de Castell. I read Spellslinger last month and really loved it, and this is, I think, a little bit more of a YA vibe from him. This sounds very much like a kind of like Musketeers, swashbuckling great time, and I'm here for it. I'm super excited. These covers are really cool. I love them. And this was a series that honestly I haven't heard that much about on Fantasy BookTube, and I'm really excited to dive into this and see if they're good, because I know Sebastian de Castell is a very prolific author. I love a good swashbuckler story, so we should get along just fine. The next series is another trilogy written by Duncan M. Hamilton, who is an author that I have gotten to know a little bit over Goodreads, and he's a great guy, and I really enjoyed reading his Dragon Slayer trilogy. And I won't lie, he's a little bit of an inspiration to me just because he started out as a self-published fantasy author, and then he was approached by an agent, a publishing house, who wanted to pick him up and have him write for them. And so I think that's really cool. And I found out that one of his trilogies that was self-published is this Wolf of the North trilogy that kind of, it's a little bit more of a coming of age feel. It feels very Nordic just from the bit that I've flipped through, and it kind of follows an unlikely hero. There's a magical object. It sounds like a very kind of classically inspired trilogy, which I'm really excited about because I've been reading a ton of fantasy that's more modern inspired, and that's awesome. I do like to dip back into that classic feel every once in a while. And also, can we just for a moment appreciate how absolutely gorgeous these covers are, because they are, and I'm excited. I always love to see a really beautiful set of books done by a self-published author. For me, obviously, that's a big deal, and I think it's really cool that he achieved so much success with these, so I'm really looking forward to reading them and seeing him develop a different world. All right, the last series on my list. I'm gonna be totally honest. Grimdark is not necessarily a category of fantasy that I'm ridiculously excited about. Grimdark and I should get along really well, but I think what happens too often in Grimdark, from what I've seen, is that the author takes it as an excuse to just be gratuitously disgusting and leave your characters with absolutely no redeeming qualities whatsoever. I read Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence earlier this year, and I gotta say, like, that was one of the worst books I have ever read in the fantasy genre. No offense meant whatsoever to Mark Lawrence. I know he's a prolific author, and I'm really excited to read his Grey Sister trilogy. I know that's not the actual name of the trilogy, but I want to read it. That was a long tangent, just to say that I have had this series recommended to me so many times. I swear if I hear the name of this trilogy one more time, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And that is the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, and I bought the first 2 books. I'm hopeful. I'm skeptically optimistic. I'm willing to try this because I have heard that this is grimdark at its finest. That's literally the phrase I've heard from so many different booktubers and so many people that have read these that I know. And I'm willing to give it a shot because I do love a good dark anti-hero story, and I'm hoping that there's some redemption in here somewhere. I have to say, the one thing about these covers are not it. I don't know if there's a different set of these that's prettier, but like, I'm not inspired by these covers exceptionally. However, I am very excited to read these books. They should be fairly quick reads, and I'm looking forward to meeting Logan Ninefingers because I've heard a lot about him, so he better be the boss. Alright guys, those are the 5 most wanted fantasy series. The TBR shelf is literally overflowing. I have a serious problem. I'm in quarantine, and books. That's all. I hope you guys are having a fabulous week, enjoying whatever it is you're reading, and I will see you in the next video.